Why some people feel lonely even when surrounded by others. Have you ever been in a crowded room and still felt completely alone? Perhaps you've experienced a moment where laughter filled the air, conversations flowed effortlessly around you, and yet something inside felt disconnected. Invisible. Unseen. It is one of the strangest experiences of being human. We often assume that loneliness comes from being physically alone. But psychology tells a different story. Some of the loneliest people are not isolated at all. They have friends, families, partners, co-workers. They are surrounded by people every day. And yet, deep inside, they feel a quiet emptiness. Why does this happen? Why can someone sit in the middle of a crowd and still feel emotionally distant from everyone around them? The answer begins with understanding a simple truth. Human beings do not merely need social contact. They need emotional connection. Throughout human history, survival depended on belonging to a group. Our ancestors lived in tribes where cooperation meant safety. Being accepted by others was not just comforting, it was necessary. The human brain evolved to seek connection because connection increased the chances of survival. But there is a difference between being surrounded by people and feeling connected to them. You can spend an entire day talking to dozens of people and still never feel understood. You can receive messages, notifications, compliments, and attention, yet still feel emotionally alone. Because loneliness is not the absence of people. Loneliness is the absence of understanding. Many people spend years hiding parts of themselves from the world. They learn to wear masks. A mask for work. A mask for family. A mask for social situations. A mask for strangers. Over time, these masks become so familiar that people forget what it feels like to be fully seen. Others may know your name. They may know your profession. They may know your habits. But very few people know your fears, your doubts, your hidden struggles, your private dreams. And when nobody truly sees these parts of you, loneliness quietly grows. Psychologists often describe emotional loneliness as the gap between the relationships we have and the relationships we need. The larger this gap becomes, the stronger the feeling of loneliness. This is why someone with hundreds of social media followers may still feel empty. This is why a person can sit beside a partner every night and still feel disconnected. The human heart does not measure connection by quantity. It measures connection by depth. A single meaningful conversation can sometimes reduce loneliness more than months of casual interactions. Deep down, most people are searching for the same thing. Not attention. Not popularity. Not admiration. Understanding. The feeling that someone truly sees them. That someone understands their inner world. That someone accepts them without requiring perfection. Yet modern life often pushes us in the opposite direction. We live in a world of constant communication. Messages arrive every minute. Notifications never stop. People are more connected digitally than at any other point in history. And yet loneliness continues to rise. How is this possible? Because communication and connection are not the same thing. You can communicate all day without ever feeling emotionally connected. Technology allows us to share information. But emotional connection requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is something many people fear. To be vulnerable means allowing another person to see who you truly are. Your weaknesses, your insecurities, your mistakes, your fears. For many people, this feels dangerous. What if they reject me? What if they judge me? What if they leave? As a result, people often choose emotional safety over emotional honesty. They hide behind carefully constructed versions of themselves. And while this protects them from rejection, it also prevents genuine connection. The paradox is painful. The walls we build to protect ourselves often become the same walls that isolate us. The more we hide, the lonelier we become. This creates a cycle. Loneliness increases fear. Fear increases emotional distance. Emotional distance increases loneliness. And the cycle continues. Many deep thinkers throughout history have observed this pattern. Some philosophers argue that the greatest human desire is not pleasure, success, or power. It is understanding. To feel understood by another human being. To know that our inner experiences matter. To know that someone else recognizes our struggles. Perhaps this explains why certain conversations stay with us for years. Not because they were entertaining, but because they made us feel seen. Sometimes a single sentence from the right person can reduce years of loneliness. Not because it solves every problem, but because it reminds us that we are not alone in our experience. The truth is that nearly everyone feels lonely at some point. Even the people who appear confident. Even the people surrounded by friends. Even the people who seem happiest. Loneliness is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is often a signal. A signal that your mind is searching for deeper connection. A signal that your heart desires understanding. And perhaps most importantly, a reminder that human beings were never meant to carry every thought, fear, and dream entirely alone. But there is another side to loneliness that few people talk about. Not all loneliness is harmful. In fact, some forms of loneliness can become the doorway to self-discovery. Throughout history, many of humanity's greatest thinkers spent long periods alone. Not because they hated people. Not because they were incapable of forming relationships. But because solitude gave them something the noisy world could not. Clarity. The ancient philosophers often sought silence and reflection away from crowds. Writers retreated into quiet rooms. Artists disappeared into nature. Scientists spent countless hours alone with their thoughts. Again and again, history reveals the same pattern. Periods of solitude often precede periods of profound insight. Why? Because when external noise fades, internal awareness grows. For the first time, we begin hearing the thoughts that are normally drowned out by distractions. We begin noticing emotions we have ignored. We begin asking questions we have avoided. And sometimes, we begin discovering who we really are. This is where an important distinction appears. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is the pain of feeling disconnected. Solitude is the peace of being connected to yourself. One drains energy. The other restores it. One creates emptiness. The other creates understanding. The challenge is that many people never learn how to move from loneliness into solitude. They remain trapped in the belief that another person must rescue them from their feelings. But true connection starts from within. A person who feels disconnected from themselves will often struggle to feel connected to others. Because every relationship becomes filtered through fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of abandonment. Fear of not being enough. When we learn to sit quietly with ourselves, something remarkable begins to happen. The silence becomes less frightening. The emptiness begins to soften. And gradually, we realize that being alone does not necessarily mean being lonely. Psychologist Carl Jung once suggested that the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. But becoming who you truly are requires time alone. It requires reflection. It requires honesty. Many people spend years trying to escape themselves. They stay busy. They seek constant entertainment. They fill every silent moment with noise. Not because they enjoy it, but because silence forces them to face what they have been avoiding. Their fears. Their regrets. Their unanswered questions. Yet growth often begins precisely where avoidance ends. The moment we stop running from ourselves, we create space for healing. Imagine standing beside a calm lake. When the water is disturbed, you cannot clearly see your reflection. But when the surface becomes still, everything becomes visible. The human mind works in a similar way. When life is filled with endless distractions, self-understanding becomes difficult. But in moments of stillness, deeper truths emerge. You begin to understand your emotions, your patterns, your desires, your wounds, and perhaps most importantly, your strengths. Many people discover that loneliness was not their greatest enemy. Disconnection was. Disconnection from themselves. Disconnection from meaning. Disconnection from authentic relationships. Once these connections begin to return, loneliness slowly loses its power. This does not mean life becomes perfect. Every human being will experience loneliness from time to time. It is part of the human condition. But loneliness no longer feels like a prison. Instead, it becomes a messenger, a signal inviting us to look deeper, a reminder to reconnect with ourselves, a reminder to seek relationships based on authenticity rather than appearances, a reminder that meaningful connection is built through honesty, vulnerability, and understanding. The truth is that most people are fighting invisible battles. The stranger you pass on the street, the coworker sitting beside you, the friend who always seems cheerful. Many of them carry hidden loneliness. Many of them wonder whether anyone truly understands them. And perhaps that realization can change the way we see each other. Because when we recognize our shared humanity, connection becomes easier. We stop trying to appear perfect. We stop pretending. We stop hiding. And we begin showing up as we truly are. Ironically, this is often the moment loneliness starts to fade. Not when more people enter our lives, but when more truth enters our relationships. Because at its core, loneliness is not about being physically alone. It is about feeling emotionally unseen. And the cure is not always more company. Sometimes the cure is deeper understanding of others and of ourselves. So if you have ever felt lonely in a crowded room, if you have ever felt disconnected despite being surrounded by people, if you have ever wondered whether anyone truly understands your inner world, remember this. You are not alone in that feeling. Millions of people have walked the same path. Many are walking it right now. And perhaps the first step toward connection is realizing that your loneliness does not separate you from humanity. It connects you to it. Because every human heart longs for the same thing: to be seen, to be understood, to be accepted. And sometimes, the journey toward finding those things begins in the quiet moments we spend alone. Not as a punishment, but as an invitation. An invitation to know ourselves more deeply. An invitation to grow. An invitation to become the person we were always meant to be. And perhaps, in that process, we discover something beautiful. That the connection we were searching for was never as far away as we imagined.